Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Are You Smarter Than a Libertarian? I'm your host, Jeff, and today we're going to talk about every failed socialist country. The left says they don't exist, but they actually do. And it's not for the reason you think that they failed. If you like this content, please like, comment, subscribe, share, recommend this, follow me on all podcasting platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart Radio. Now, on with the show. Every failed socialist country has the same breakup story, and we hear it all the time. It wasn't me. It was the capitalists. It was the imperialists. They sabotaged us. No, they didn't. And I'll explain why that is a cop out and an intellectually lazy argument. At some point, with socialism, with the fall of countries, as well as your own relationships, you have to stop blaming your ex and ask why every relationship you are in ends the same way. And spoiler alert, it's because the common denominator is you. Sanctions didn't kill socialism. The left loves to say it did. Capitalism didn't sabotage it. Yet again, another leftist talking point. But reality collapsed it. Now, here's the core problem socialists, leftists, and communists never want to talk about. It's like you don't want to talk about how you're bad in a relationship. Now, from a libertarian perspective, socialism is broken at the factory setting, and there's no factory reset. They try it. That wasn't real socialism. No, yes, it was, and it just failed every time. The moment you abolish private property, the entire system starts running on vibes and guesswork, which they have no clue what they're doing. No ownership means no prices. No prices means no real cost signals that businesses use. No cost signals means planners are just making stuff up and they're hoping for the best. The Soviets didn't have a plan for market prices. They would just buy Sears catalog in bulk and set the prices off of that. This is not controversial in economics unless you are emotionally invested in an ideology, but most leftists are very emotional creatures. Ludwig von Mises explained this a century ago. Without market prices created by voluntary exchange, the left doesn't like that, rational economic calculations is impossible. Also, the left doesn't do rational calculations. You can't know what to produce, how much to produce, or where resources are most valuable. Oh my God, it's like people know what's best for them and not the government. Central planners are not smarter. They're blindfolded and ignorant, and they're going to move the stuff to their crony friends. Why sanctions are the perfect excuse for intellectual laziness on the left. Libertarians oppose sanctions, but not because they magically make socialism fail. Sanctions are coercive. They violate free trade. They hurt civilians, not the government. They give politicians the power to punish people who had nothing to do with the problem. Wow, it's almost like the left. That's the standard playbook for the leftists and the authoritarians. But here's the part socialists never mention because it's inconvenient and it makes them look bad. Sanctions are a gift to authoritarian regimes. They really are. Look at what happened in Venezuela, eating zoo animals and hoarding toilet paper. When shelves are empty, leaders do not have to admit central planning failed. They just point at the embargo and say, see, capitalism did this. No, capitalism didn't do this. Your own economic stupidity did. It is the political version of spilling your drink and then blaming gravity. It's the equivalent of misspelled letters because of your pencil. Cuba and the never-ending embargo story. Cuba is the favorite example of the left. So let's deal with it with facts and not propaganda. Yes, the U.S. embargo is bad policy, and libertarians like myself, we oppose it. We truly oppose it because it violates people's right to trade and make money. But Cuba's problems didn't begin with sanctions. They began when the government decided farmers should not own what they grow. It should be owned by the state. You have the same thing happen in the Ukraine. Before the revolution, Cuba was largely food self-sufficient, kind of like Venezuela. After collectivization, price controls, and state monopolies, food shortages poof magically appeared like out of nowhere. Crops rot while people stand in ration lines and bread lines. Wow, so great. And Bernie Sanders said bread lines were a good thing. Cuba trades globally, including with the US, for food and medicine. Tourism gets priority. Military-run state enterprises hoard resources. Private initiative is treated like a crime. Same thing in Venezuela, North Korea. Not so much China anymore because they went capitalist. That is not an external blockade. That is an internal one. It's like sticking a branch in your bike tire and falling over and then blaming everyone else but you for sticking the branch in there to cause you to flip off the bike. When nearly 90% of households are living in poverty, blaming capitalism is just embarrassing and honestly kind of fucking lazy. The Soviet Union was not sanctioned into collapse. The Soviet Union did not collapse because of Western pressure. They collapsed because they didn't know how to run an economy. It collapsed because central planners, the clowns in Moscow, well, now we also have them in DC at the Fed, the central planning does not work. When profit and loss disappear or it's externalized to someone else, so does innovation in a centrally planned economy. When bureaucrats replace markets, shortages become permanent. Black markets become the only functioning economy. North Korea has a thriving black market. The USSR spent massive portions of its economy on military expansion while basic consumer goods were scarce. Afghanistan, Chernobyl, and the late-stage reforms did not break the system. They exposed it. Without private property, planners have no way to connect resources to human needs. Everything becomes arbitrary, inefficient, and corrupt, funneling proceeds to your friends. Sanctions may have sped things up, but they did not design the disaster. Now here we go with pattern recognition. The pattern that never, ever, ever changes and will never change. Every socialist failure follows the same script or recipe, if you prefer. And one of them is, that wasn't real socialism. That wasn't real communism. The millions of deaths would say otherwise. It was sabotage. It was greedy capitalist. It was imperialist. It needed more time. This is not a sourdough starter. More time's not going to make it better. It had the wrong enemies. Funny how capitalism works even when surrounded by hostile governments. But socialism only works in theory under perfect conditions and with imaginary people, but people on the left think boys can be girls and girls can be boys. Brilliant. And libertarians were not impressed. So let's wrap this up. I thank you guys very much for watching me, but we're going to put a little bow on this. Libertarianism offers something radical. And the left ought to listen to us because they love radical. Although their level of radical is stupidity, and they will never agree to this. Let people own property. They're against that. Let people trade voluntarily. They're against that. Let markets coordinate instead of coercion to make coordination happen. If socialism worked, it would not need excuses. If central planning produced prosperity, it would not collapse everywhere it's been tried. Even in the U.S. with the Federal Reserve. Sanctions did not kill socialism. Socialism did it all by itself. And that's the great thing that the left will never mention, that socialism killed itself. So, again, thank you very much for watching. If you like this content, please like, comment, subscribe, share, follow. And until next time, stay free, stay informed. and stay accountable.